Hey guys, welcome back to the Kelsey Sugai podcast. It's been a while, but I feel a lot better now. I got through COVID. My voice is back, which is great because I'm not used to doing a raspy voice. But yeah, things have been better for me, and I'm super honored and super blessed to have my guest on today. This is someone who is an MMA legend. This is a business owner, a podcaster. This is someone that, I'm very honored to speak with today, and I hope you guys are going to be blessed by his presence and blessed by his knowledge and his wisdom, because if you guys listen to his podcast, which is the Yamato Damashi podcast, he says a lot of wisdom, and it's a great podcast about his life and his opinions on what's going on today, even with MMA, and we'll talk about that as well. But I just want to bring on our special guest today. Give ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Mr. Enson Inoue.
What's up?
Hey, Uncle Enson. Do people call you Uncle Enson when they come in your shop?
Some people do, I guess. Yeah, I guess I'm looking older, so people that I don't know just call me uncle sometimes.
I think that's something so good about Hawaii, because like even if you're like a year younger, I still call people that are with great respect. I call them uncle or auntie, just because I think that's just something we grew up with. So but yeah, Uncle Enson, I have we see your younger self in the on the top left corner or the top right corner.
Yeah, the young dude, man.
Young dude, you're still young at heart, though. You're still very active.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, first off, how have things been in Hawaii? Because you've been here for maybe a month now. You come back and forth. You live in Japan, but you're here in Hawaii to do business. But then now you're for Destiny Forever, which we'll talk about later. But how have things been?
Really good. I actually had usually my trips are only like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the pandemic and because the last time I came back in November, when I went back, I had to quarantine for 14 days. So, when you got to go back and add another 14 days to your trip to be immobile in your house, it's got to be worthwhile a trip. So instead of just doing a 2-weeker and then quarantine for as long as I was in Hawaii and Japan, I figured it's probably better to make it a long trip. So now that the new movement now in Japan is there's no quarantine for vaccinated people. The trips I can, my next one will probably be a 2 or 3 weeker, because now I can go back and forth a lot easier. Yeah, so that makes a big difference when I don't need to quarantine. So kind of looking forward to it, man. No quarantine this time on the way home.
Yeah, definitely. I seen that. I don't know if it's an app, but it scans your face. Is that how they track whether you're quarantining or not?
Yeah. So when I went back in November, you had to put in 3 apps. One app was a video recorder, where they call you and you just kind of put your face in this circle in the video.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at you for 30 seconds, no talking, just look at the person. And another app was one that they sent you a health questionnaire that you had to answer every day if you're having any symptoms.
And
it's pretty much, if you don't have anything, there's no, done. So that was fast. But then there was also another one that a video one, they would also call you randomly. The other one is there was a locator that they put on. You had to put in a location application. That only locates where you are when you push the button, for what they say. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes, so they would send you a text message saying, please press your you are here button. And that would happen once or sometimes twice a day, where they ask you to push the button, and obviously you have to be home, so that the indicator shows that your location, your GPS is at home. So yeah, that's the 3 things that we had actually. And it was I guess, yeah, it pretty much keeps you there, because you don't want to miss too many of them. Then they start doubting you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess for us, we felt privileged that we're able to do our quarantine at home,
Mm.
and we didn't want to be like black marked, and then they say, okay, you're never home when we want to call you, so you're gonna have to quarantine in a specified location. So we didn't want something like that to happen, which in Japan, as you know, can easily happen.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so was very obedient with the quarantine, and this time no quarantine. So looking
Yeah,
forward to that.
that's good.
Starting my life in Japan the day I get back instead of waiting 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a long time.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I had COVID, waiting for 2 weeks being at home, it went by fast, but it was also I don't know, it felt longer just because of the sickness to go through it and um, to get
Yeah.
better. I think the chills was okay because I had chills. The problem was the sore throat. I had this real sore throat where um, it was hard to swallow or
Oh,
even to drink water. It was hard to drink water for
oh, I hate that. Oh,
a couple days. So it was, yeah, it would burn. So when I drank water, it would burn, and then, um,
ooh.
yeah, it sucked. It was super shitty. So, but so what happened was I got sick. I had chills, and then I didn't have chills, but I had a sore throat for a couple days where it was real scratchy, and then I got chills again, but my sore throat went away. So I'll say I told my wife, I said I rather have chills than the sore throat. So I'm okay with this, And the whole time after that was I felt pretty good. I was just getting better slowly. I lost my voice, which is kind of why I had to put my podcast on hold because it was uh, it's hard to do a podcast if people can't hear you. So unless
Yeah, yeah. That would make it a little difficult.
yeah, I could do an ASMR. Maybe I'll do an ASMR podcast. Just maybe eating fried chicken or something and see if people like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet. But I'm glad you got over it without any like, lingering health complications, which some people have. Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
good, good.
yeah, for me, like during COVID right now, I take it precautionary. I'm not as like over cautionary as some people where they gotta sanitize everything. I mean, they gotta sanitize every time they come in and go out. But um, I'm to the point where I'm comfortable if I get it or I don't get it, but I don't want to be able to. I don't want to be that person to get it. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to be that person to spread it, even if I was asymptomatic or not. So, um, so I'm like cautiously, but I'm not over cautiously handling
Oh,
COVID.
I see.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been good. So for people that don't know, you did move to Japan. Was it about 31 years ago? Was it 30?
Yeah, 31 years ago, man. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Um, let's talk about Hawaii for a bit, because I don't know if some people know, but you used to play racquetball. This is kind of how you started with your MMA career. You actually you did karate at first, and then you went to which you didn't like. But I kind of want to ask, what is one thing you miss about Hawaii, versus Japan right now?
Well, my big thing was the beaches.
Mm.
I would jump in, like even today till today when I in the morning I wake up, I do a little workout. Because my knees are bad now, I kind of walk the beach, no running anymore, and then swim to the reef. So my whole daily routine in the morning is to get in the water. And
Mm.
of course I can't, because of my age and my shoulders and all the injuries that I have, I can't do what I used to do. I can't do the surfing. I can't do the diving. I don't have the equipment anymore. But I mean, for something about, I guess, being an island boy and getting in the water is something that's real huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I get refreshed. I feel good when I jump in the water. I jumped in the water today. Going to jump in the water tomorrow. Every day I pretty much jump in the water. And you
Mm.
know how it is. Yeah, the mesh shorts that dry fast, hang them on the rear view mirror, and then the side mirror on the
Mm-hmm.
car dry. My pants are hanging on my mirror right now, drying up. So you know, Hawaii. I love Hawaii. That's the biggest thing I miss about Hawaii is the beaches, man.
Mm. Mm-hmm. What about the community now? Like, what changes have you seen um, back in your day when you were living here versus now?
One is real stands out a lot is the homeless people.
Mm,
We've never had so much homeless back in when I was younger.
mm,
And the crime's ridiculous. I mean, it bothers me a lot about considering Hawaii my home, and then there's so much crime, and people that are stealing and robbing and doing making this not a safe place anymore.
mm,
So it's real frustrating for me. I mean, that's one of the big changes I've seen, and I have a hard time with it when I come home. I see, you know, the chronic people out on the street. They want another fix, so they're trying to get money any way they want. So it's just it's a real unfortunate thing that I noticed since I got home. It's really disturbing and kind of sad to see the islands turning like that.
mm. For Japan, is there a lot more crime that's maybe not said, or is it kind of consistent? I mean, the culture there, is it pretty consistent?
No, it's kind of consistent.
Okay.
Japan does have its crime, it does have its crime, but with the reputation it has, where it's pretty safe, that's pretty accurate.
Mm,
I mean, like we always talk about it, like you lose your wallet in Japan, 99% of the chances you're getting everything back, everything in it.
mm,
You forget your cell phone in the train station, 99% chance someone's going to turn it in, you're going to get your phone back.
mm,
And I've had 100% rate at that. I mean, I'm saying 99 because there's always going to be someone that is not going to return it.
mm.
Even you still see today in Japan, you see people going to 7-Eleven in their cars and leaving their cars running in the parking lot.
Wow,
Oh, they should.
that's
Yeah, so that kind of stuff still goes on, and I don't think it's underplayed or overplayed. I think Japan's primarily a very very safe country,
mm,
and with the movement of the way Hawaii's going, moving with the way the whole world is going, man, I can't think of a better place to be as far as safety in
mm,
Japan. If I had my choice and I was a millionaire, I would love to, fly my parents up here and have them, you know, finish off their golden years here in Hawaii, man. Here in Japan, Hawaii's a beautiful place, but I mean, just the crime and, being so far away from them just worries me.
mm. Yeah, I agree. For I always hear stories about Japan being super safe and people very accommodating, which is amazing. You see it in videos, and then actually that's actually how they are. How accommodating they are and how nice, and they keep consistent, which is really good. So that's and I agree with Hawaii. I mean, back in when I was going to high school and stuff, I mean, we didn't see much crime because it was safe to walk to like Zippies at 2 a.m. in the morning. And I lived in Kailua. I'm a Windward boy my whole life, literally. But um, I remember I used to live at Ulupina Street, which is kind of off of Oniawa Street, and to get to Zippies is probably a good 50-minute walk, I think, if you're walking kind of slow, but it's a good 15-minute walk. And yeah, we used to go at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we wouldn't have any problems for like uh, people, drunk drivers. We wouldn't have any problems with um, just any kind of out of weird people or even homeless. So so I agree. Even now I tell people, hey, it is a lot more dangerous just walking around at night, even going to the club or anything, because you don't know what's gonna happen here. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the influx of tourists that's been coming, or if it's just um, the the amount of housing that's being bought here, which is it's different because there's locals that are leaving versus people from the mainland that are buying more housing here, which could factor into that. So um, a lot of changes in Hawaii. But so let's talk about your days in Hawaii. Let's talk about racquetball, for instance. Actually, I want to know, were you and your brother very competitive? Because in a lot of ways, you and your brother did a lot of the same things. You guys both did martial arts, um, racquetball. So were you and your brother Egan very competitive?
No, no, I don't feel like we were towards each other.
Mm.
We're more supportive towards each other. You know, we trained a lot together. In racquetball, Egan helped me out a lot with, the way to train, working on my stroke. So, he helped out a lot.
Mm.
Even, travel. He had all the good sponsors. I didn't have sponsors, so I stayed in his sponsors' rooms, so
Mm.
it was never like a competition level where we would not, it would keep things from each other or
Mm.
that's your sponsor, not mine. It was everything. I mean, as far as Egan goes, everything was shared and everything was, you know, he made it accessible to me. So
Mm.
I didn't have, he was a much better player. So he had all the sponsors. I didn't have anything that I could really offer him, but he still, as the older brother, helped me out, helped me work my game, helped me train, so I don't think that there was any like real competitiveness in us, really. Not really. I don't think so.
That's good. I know for my dad was super competitive. I mean, with his brothers, they would. He used to get into
Oh, really?
yeah, they used to get into fights all the time. Actually, my dad was competitive with me with like basketball or chess. So he would always tell me, "Hey, let's go play," And I'm not a competitive person, which is surprising. I'm not super like, oh, like if he won, I would have been like, oh, that's cool. I wouldn't try to like go again.
Competitive people want to have the other person want to win too. Yeah.
Yeah. So and my sister was competitive. So I grew up, yeah, surprisingly, I grew up in a competitive family. So they would want to be competitive, but I didn't feel like I could reach that just because I was younger. So but in a way, I guess I worked up to try to at least keep up with them. So um, yeah, that's great though. And um, one of the things you guys used to do is karate, which I used to do karate when I was younger too. So um, talk about your experience going into karate, because you have a very interesting story about you took a class and then you never really looked back at it. You basically just it wasn't a good fit.
Basically, just wimped out pretty much.
Mm.
My grandfather was a karate black belt. At the time, my mom was a karate brown belt. I think Egan was also a karate brown belt at the time.
Mm.
And so like I think my dad didn't ever do karate, but it was kind of like, oh, mom, dad, grandpa, karate. I guess I'll try it out. So I did go, and I don't know if it was like one of the first three classes. I think it was. It
Mm-hmm.
was within the third class, I think, where that you stand in a stance, and you have to have a good stance, and the teacher comes around, and of course we're little kids, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me it would seem pretty dramatic, but I think for the teacher it probably wasn't. I remember his name was Daryl Lee,
Mm-hmm.
and he came around and just started, just checking, just swiftly, just kicking our legs to see if we have a good stance. And if we have a good stance, we'd be okay. We won't fall. And for me, I think I fell. Yeah, he swept me right off my feet onto my butt, and it was in front of the whole class. I remember just saying, "Oh, fuck this shit! I'm out of here, man." So I think I got up. I think I was crying. I got up
Mm.
and I just left the dojo, man.
Mm.
And I ran out to the dojo. I remember going downstairs, and it was in Puck's Alley,
Mm.
and there was a construction going on. And I remember the construction workers on the side. There was a payphone I couldn't reach because I was so little.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to ask the workers if they could, put the money in and dial the phone for me so I could call my dad to pick me up.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah. And that worker complied. He said, "Yeah, no problem." He bent down. He grabbed me some. I gave him the loose change, and he called down the phone, hand me the phone, and I called and said, "Told my dad I hate karate. Come get me. I'm done."
That's
The
awesome.
amazing thing with that is that I mean, I would think as a proper father for me, so that my boy doesn't turn to a quitter or like a little, guy that can cry out of things.
Mm-hmm.
I would have, I would have had a little talk with my son and told him, hey, you got to be tough. You got to tough it out. But what's real weird is I consider myself, I'm really happy the way I grew up, and I'm really happy for the person I am. I didn't turn out to be a real weak person inside. I
Mm-hmm.
believe I'm a fairly strong person. And I don't know. I mean, the fact that my dad didn't give me any pressure to go back at all. I mean, for me, the proper way would be make your son go back. But I mean, I guess there is also another way that actually could be productive, because the way my dad approached it with me, it didn't turn me into someone who gives up a lot. It didn't turn me into a crybaby.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if he gave me any side talks on the side, but however he did it, I really like what he did, because I really am proud of who I am today. And I guess sometimes, it made me think about it, and hopefully make some other people think about it, that maybe the hard love isn't always the best way to do it for kids. So nowadays, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
just showing compassion and understanding sometimes is the way to do it. I don't know. I mean, it worked for me. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a case by case kind of thing, with
I think so. Yeah. I think it was one of those chances that it didn't affect me in that way. I didn't turn into a person that would find ways out of situations by crying or giving up. Yeah.
mm.
So lucky.
And who knows? I mean, like, that's a good point, because like, who knows if maybe they disciplined you hard about, um, like not giving up with karate. You could have been a completely different person, you know, maybe much worse. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a good point, because I think, um, because that's kind of goes back to like parents understanding their children, knowing, what their children like and what they do, how they are, because then they'll know what kind of pep talks they need to give or not give them, in certain moments like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that. Yeah.
Um, that was the same. So when I took karate, it was funny because I just remember this one where we did sparring, and I was up against I think I was like second grade, and I was up against one of my friends, Mariah, right, a girl, and I felt awkward because I was like, I don't know how to, at the time I was like, I don't know how to restrain myself, or like, I don't want to hit her because it's a girl, one of my friends,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and so I just got beat up that whole sparring match. She actually hit me pretty good in the stomach, got me down on the ground, and I was on the ground for a while. Um, but yeah, karate, with karate, and I think I stuck it through until third grade, or fourth. It was fourth grade actually. I stuck it through until fourth grade, and then I transitioned to like school choir or something completely different.
Oh, so that suited you better, maybe, huh?
Yeah, I but with karate, it's I think it's good for parents to put kids into a martial arts program like that, just to get them exposed, even if they don't like it. But then if they decide to move on from it, then that's fine too. But um, you know, with Hawaii, it's kind of a interesting thing because um, I see a lot of parents, they'll just put their kids in karate or taekwondo or um, maybe Wing Chun, already here. And I guess Hawaii is kind of a melting pot of not just people but even martial arts as well. So what would you say for that?
Yeah, Hawaii has a wide range. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it wasn't that accessible for us.
Mm.
And I found a Muay Thai teacher that was teaching in the park, Moilili Park. So you had to kind of find your teachers. But nowadays, man, there's gyms all over the place. I mean, especially jiu-jitsu gyms. They're all over. I mean, I drive by a lot of jiu-jitsu. Whoa, another jiu-jitsu, another jiu-jitsu. It's kind of cool, man. I don't know who runs them all, but it's pretty cool to see, though.
Mm-hmm.
All the different jiu-jitsu just popping up all over.
They used to I remember maybe like I'd say like 10 years ago they used to have the jujitsu the garages. You know, people would do their own gym in the
Yeah,
garage.
that's how we started. That's how we started ours. We were starting in the garage, man. It was a garage dojo.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting mats in the garage. Yeah.
So kind of continuing off with martial arts because you had that experience with karate, but then you tried a few different things after that. You tried some Wing Chun, you tried Taekwondo. I think Aikido was one. I'm not sure if Aikido was one, but
It was also one of them.
but you found jujitsu in some way. How did that transition happen?
Um, I actually retired from a racquetball.
Mm.
So I was going back to the UH, and I guess I needed somewhere to channel my energy. So I looked at all different classes they had, and I found that's where I found Aikido actually.
Mm.
And then so I took that Aikido class, and for me, I was not looking at the spiritual side of the martial art. I was looking more for something that I could apply on the streets to defend myself or to fight.
Mm.
And Aikido is not the one you want to do if you want to learn something that you can take off the street in a month or two, you know. So when I found that out, I decided to move on from Aikido. And that's where I was walking down the campus center one day in the UH, so University of Manoa. And I walked by this Brazilian guy, set up a little table with a video of street fights playing.
Mm.
When I saw it, I was like, oh, what is this? Stood there and watched it, and I was like, holy crap. These jiu-jitsu guys are beating everybody up. And I was saying, wow, this is exactly what I want to learn.
Mm.
And lo and behold, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was actually a non-credit course in the UH.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go sign up for it, and I signed up for the class, and that's how Jiu-Jitsu actually, I got into Jiu-Jitsu actually, just from UH. It was a UH non-credit course.
Mm.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so what was your experience like that with maybe your first experience going to class? Because you know, with the other classes they didn't really click, but then was it the self-defense part of it, like how with jiu-jitsu it's like you have all these different traps? Was that interested you, or was it something
What
specific?
happened was when I walked in the class, they had this the Gracies had this prerequisite where they would run everyone through a 30-day self-defense class before even getting into the ground aspect of jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
When I went into the first class, you know, I was expecting to see stuff I saw in the video where guys are, you know, beating other guys up and, you know, learning how to defend yourself on the streets from, you know, real street attacks.
Mm.
And when we went into the class, we had this, it was all basic self-defense. Like he grabs you here, you swing your arm over, do this and do, you know, it was like, this is nothing like I saw in the video. So I was actually kind of disappointed in my first class. And as I walked out, you know, as the class ended, I walked out to the teacher, Helson, and I told him, hey, what I saw in the video, I want to try the grappling on the video with somebody. And there was a bunch of little black belt guys from Brazil that was there. Mm-hmm. So he kind of said, okay. And he called this guy, his name was Homero. And he said, Homero, come here. And the guy was at the time, I was about 180 pounds. And this guy was like 130. And I was thinking, oh shit. I said, wow, you know, they might have better technique than me, but with my strength and my size, this little guy's not going to, I really felt that there's no way he was going to do anything to me. Mm-hmm. And I got choked out, man. I got controlled on the ground. I got choked out, and I was like, okay, one more time. After the third time, I was like, holy shit, this is pretty badass, man. Mm-hmm. And that's when I went head over heels every day, just jiu-jitsu. Everything was jiu-jitsu. I I was obsessed. I was obsessed with jiu-jitsu.
Mm. And it was just that one lesson that was that one experience that really got
Yep.
to you. Mm.
Yeah. That really caught me off guard. Like, whoa. And I really thought that at the time. I really thought that I was a good street fighter. I could fight, and I learned in that one day that I really knew shit about fighting on the street.
Mm.
It was a big wake up call for me.
Mm. Was that a frequent thing? Because you talk about street fighting as in it's maybe it was something that was a big part in Hawaii that happened to you.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, especially being Japanese, being a smaller Japanese guy, the Hawaiians want to take your lunch money.
Mm.
I've had big incidents in Stevenson Intermediate School
Mm.
when as we merged from Manoa to the intermediate school, it's you go to intermediate school as Stevenson and then go to Roosevelt in my district.
Mm.
So you're mixing in with Poa and Papakalea, all the guys in there. So you got this small little, American Japanese community merging with the Samoans and the Hawaiians.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got, back in that day, a bigger guy was a stronger guy. So the bigger guys would come in, take lunch money from the Japanese kids. So you either give up your lunch money every day or you fight back and they never bother you again, but they're always going to start and pick on you and start little fights here and there. So
Mm.
yeah, it was a uphill battle. And once I, stood up for myself, it's not like it stopped. There's these people, I remember Billy Keka, Avis,
Mm.
and had this little boy Puna. I mean, those three people just terrorized me every day, and it wasn't to a point where I was traumatized or I didn't want to go to school. I just freaking hated them. I mean,
Mm.
they would every time they had a chance, they would stare me down. I mean, and they were older than us, so they're a lot. We felt they're bigger and stronger. But I mean, I rather stand up for myself and be living on the edge in school than like they say, what I'd rather I would die on my feet than live on my knees. So
Mm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's kind of like that where I had to make a choice, and the choice was to stand up. And
Mm.
once I did, I couldn't turn around. I had to stand up for myself every time, and it did cause a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety going to school, but it was okay. I mean, look, I turned out okay.
Mm-hmm.
So all in all, it was actually a very good experience, I believe.
And I think that that's a testament to your will as a fighter as well, being able to just stand up and um, go against that oppression versus, you know, taking it on the shins. You stand up for yourself, and I think that's important. Same thing with like junior high. I think even for me, junior high, I got into a few fights too. So, um, I don't know if it's just because there's so many people that are coming to one place that um, you get that kind of thing at junior high. But I think a lot of my friends would say the same thing. It's just something about I went to Kailo Intermediate, so yeah, same thing would be. I wouldn't have the same kind of issues where I had someone staring me down every day, but
Yeah, yeah.
you know, there was one instance I remember. There was a guy that was throwing food at me. I was eating lunch, and he was throwing food at me. I didn't really retaliate until they started throwing like milk and stuff like that. And then I got pissed off, and I didn't know any martial arts at the time, but I got him. I got him to the ground, and honestly, it's good. It's good that I didn't know jujitsu because I probably maybe could have done even more damage or something at that point. But because I had top position, and I had the mount position at that time, so it was like it's good that I didn't know jujitsu and stuff at that point. But yeah, I totally understand that it's more of a self defense thing, being able
Yeah,
to
yeah.
and then the art of it too. I think the what really interests me about jujitsu is how you can kind of do this whole chess thing with people. Especially if both both people are great practitioners in jiu-jitsu. I actually practice Kali Eskrima on the side. I've been practicing with my Sifu Nate. Shout out to Sifu Nate, who's Nathan Young, who's been teaching me. But um, yeah, we've been really practicing stuff with locks and disarms with Kali Eskrima. So um, it really interests me the intricacies of, like, just you take one step here and you have all these different options, or you grab someone's wrist and you can do so many different options with um, disarms. And with jiu-jitsu it's probably the same way. So that really
It's
that
kind
really
of like this
interests me.
chess game, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
game.
yeah, it is real good.
So let's talk about your transition from jiu-jitsu. You're going to your first class. Um, actually, I want to talk about your experience on getting a black belt, or reaching that pinnacle, getting a black belt. And you actually have an interesting story about how um, you stepped back from it too. You wanted to go back to being a purple belt because of how things have changed. But um, how did that experience come about with you became a black belt?
Well, it was real. I think the way I trained in Japan, I mean in Hawaii, I trained so much that I got my level increased really fast. Where while I was a blue belt, I was actually submitting black belts from
Oh,
Brazil.
mm,
Yeah, so I shot to the level, but in the midst of being a purple belt, I moved to Japan.
mm,
So I kept training in Japan. Of course, didn't have any jiu-jitsu guys in Japan. So I had to pretty much
mm,
train with wrestlers, grab those kind of guys. Um, so I had to, kind of find a way to actually be able to do that, with keep my levels up without, having a jiu-jitsu class.
mm.
So I mean, I would want to say that I'm one of the longest purple belts ever, because it was like 4 years before I even moved on to anything
Oh
else. And
wow, that's a long
it's
time.
funny because there was no jiu-jitsu tournaments in Japan, so I couldn't enter any tournaments.
Mm,
Um, every time I went home, I continued training. And there was one time where Egan won the worlds in purple, and the and Higan Machado.
mm,
Were so happened to I went on a training trip with Egan. We trained there. We did sparring, and Higan, because Egan won the worlds in purple, told Egan, "Hey, you should put on a brown." Back in the day, it was
mm.
like that. The coach would just throw us a belt and say, "You're a brown belt now." It wasn't like right now. There's like a big belt ceremony. They get announced, they clap. But back in the day, it was pretty much Higgins said, "Oh, Egan, you should be brown."
Mm,
And he looked at me and said, "You're the same level as Egan. You should put on a brown too."
mm.
And I go, "Oh, okay." And I got my brown belt. My black belt was real non-ceremonial. The black belt, I just finished beating Randy Couture.
Wow. Okay.
And then I got called to from three different places that they wanted to present me with my black belt. And I chose John Penederis through John Lewis.
Mm,
Andre Penederis, yeah. So Andre Penederis was the head. John Lewis was under him, and John Lewis is the one who gave me my black belt through
mm,
Andre Penederis from Novi Union. Yeah. So it was real anticlimactic.
mm.
Wasn't a big ceremony, a big surprise. It was pretty much, oh yeah, you beat Randy. We want to give you your black belt. Like, whoa, okay, is that how it is? So I got my black belt in 99.
Mm,
So I got my black belt, almost half a decade before, the IBJJF was formed, and it's an association that won't recognize my black belt now.
mm.
It's like maybe I should be the one recognizing their association, because I had my black belt before the association was, even around.
Even
So
around. Mm,
it's like a real weird thing, yeah. So
mm,
yeah. So that getting my black belt was very anticlimactic, and it wasn't like a big thing to really like talk about or brag about at all.
mm, mm-hmm. But that must have been a good feeling, though. I mean, because you put in so much work, and I mean, of course, you trained really hard still, even after getting your black belt. But just to see that accomplishment, you're probably like, man, this is crazy. Like I've actually got to this point, but so I want to talk about because you there was a phase where you wanted to go back to being a purple belt because of the fact that you thought that you didn't practice as a jiu-jitsu artist, as a black belt jiu-jitsu artist for a while, and you thought that because of jiu-jitsu being kind of forward in time, that your I guess, not saying, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but your skill as at that current level, you were a purple belt. You felt that you were a purple belt at that time. So talk about that experience and like um why you did that, and the reasons for
Well,
after that.
I actually, after I retired, I actually wasn't that active for a while.
Mm.
So even when I was fighting, I went more towards MMA than jiu-jitsu. I did still spar in the gi, but not like I should.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the jiu-jitsu is a ever is a sport that is never stagnant. It'll always improve and change.
Mm-hmm.
So the 10 years that I was actually pretty much off the mats, the sport did a real big change.
Mm.
So when I went back to sparring again, I realized there's a lot of things my purple belts were doing that I couldn't understand.
Mm.
And I had this theory on, like if you're like a cell phone expert and you know everything about those old flip school phones,
Mm-hmm.
know how to use all that, and then you leave the business for 10 years. And when you come back, all of a sudden there's these there's iPhones, like you can go on the internet with them. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a expert in the flip phones, but what the hell is this, So I kind of looked at it in that sense, that I felt like I couldn't consider myself a jiu-jitsu black belt anymore because I didn't, I had to relearn everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt it was like a personal journey for myself that, I wanted to put myself back, demote myself to the level I think I am in the current jiu-jitsu, and, learn it back
Mm-hmm.
and go on another journey getting the black belt, but, it was taken good and bad from many people,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people praised me for it, called it, great humility. Some people considered it some other people are saying that I'm trying to grab attention, which was wasn't even in my head, I wanted to get attention from people, and then some are really pissed off. And what I noticed, the ones that were really pissed off were the ones that are the old school guys that don't train anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And almost, I think they personally felt like I was actually challenging them, that you guys should get on the mat so you guys can't be a real black belt. And I wasn't. It was just a personal journey and my personal feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed the people that really got offended were those people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got praised a lot. And, I didn't see it as any type of humility at all. I just thought that it was something of my journey that I wanted to, step back a little bit, start all over, and, do what I feel is probably the proper way to give respect to the sport.
Mm-hmm.
What was really interesting was when I touched bases with John Lewis on it.
Mm-hmm.
When he told me, Enson, you can do whatever you want, but I don't agree with what you're doing. And I was like, wow, what do you mean you don't agree?
Mm.
And he said, Enson, a jiu-jitsu black belt isn't like a cell phone expert. He said, I look at it more like a doctorate. As if a doctor is a doctor in medicine, and he steps away from medicine for about 10 years, and he wants to come back and start practicing medicine again. He doesn't start at his bachelor degree and get into med school and then apply for that and go through med school. He doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
He learns the new techniques and the new technology as a doctor. So what John put when he pointed this out, which really made sense, he said, the problem is, Enson, is your lack of humility as a black belt.
Mm.
And it caught me off guard because most of the people were praising me for being so humble. And then when John said that, I thought to myself, wow, I did feel uncomfortable as a black belt with my purple belts passing my guard super easy.
Mm.
And I felt that, yeah, it is. I got to learn everything, suck up my ego, and learn everything as a black belt with a black belt around my waist. And when John pointed it out and I sat down and, didn't get offended at it, I kind of sat down because John is a very knowledgeable person. So I sat back and said, wait a minute, what does he mean by that? And when I really gave it a deep thought, I realized that he was 100% true. I wanted to demote myself because I was not confident as a black belt. And I felt embarrassed having my purple belts pass my guard. And if I put on a purple belt, I didn't care because we're on the same level now and you passed my guard. Oh, good job. You did a good job, But I guess it was just that little pressure of having a black belt that I didn't have enough humility to be able to, work through it. So right there, I decided that, hey, John's right. I'm going to have to keep this black belt on my waist and have to learn humility as a black belt and learn the new techniques as a black belt, even if I have my purple belt to teach me. So, it was a good learning experience for me. It was, very humbling experience.
Yeah, I can see what he means by that, because for like so I'm actually in accounting, but for people that get their CPA license, they always have to take classes to kind of keep up that status. But then maybe if they decide they're not going to take those classes, then they're not a certified public accountant, but they can get their CPA license after they take a few classes to kind of get up to speed with how it is again. So it's kind of the same way with that same terminology, because you wouldn't go back and tell the CPA license crew like, oh, I have to I don't know anything anymore, so here's my license, you can take it back, I'll take the test again. They'll probably say like, no, you took the test, you passed it, just take a few classes to get up to speed, then you're certified again, and
yeah.
and it's the same
same thought process.
Yeah. So I totally understand what John Lewis was saying right there.
Yeah.
And I guess that's good for those who are going into jiu-jitsu too. And I mean, every martial art it's growing, it's ever evolving. Jiu-jitsu or even Wing Chun. I would love to learn some Wing Chun, honestly.
Yeah, Wing Chun's good. I believe Wing Chun's really good.
I just like that. I like to mix it up. So like, my teacher Sifu Nate, he actually mixes Wing Chun with boxing. So I like the way he integrates that, because a lot of Wing Chun is very whatchamacallit? It's a very like, you grab and then you attack kind of thing. A lot of parries. But with boxing, which I've been practicing a lot of, is a lot of footwork. So, I'll ask him about that later. Yeah, shout out to Sifu Nate.
I think it's good to do both because they're both in different ranges of fighting. Boxing is, kickboxing, of course, you have to be ready at the range of the feet. The boxing, you don't need to worry about the range of the feet. It's more the range of the hands. And then Wing Chun is pretty much once you make contact. Once you get contact and there's touching and grabbing involved, boxing is really hard to, work with. And I believe right in the middle of boxing and wrestling would be Wing Chun. I believe Wing Chun was one of the arts that I decided that I wanted to work on when I was trying to find the best art for the streets.
Very good point. For people that want to go into Wing Chun, I guess.
Wing Chun, definitely.
So I want to talk about your MMA career. So like, how did you want to, or what was your thought process about getting into your first professional fight? Because I mean, how did that even come about for yourself?
I was in Japan, and like I said, I always trained for the streets. All my training was about being able to defend myself in the streets. And so when I learned a lot of fighting, when I was in Japan, I noticed that in Japan there was a lot of fights. In Hawaii there was like Dennis Alexio fighting, and rarely did you even have a fight in Hawaii. And to even think of, there was no MMA, and I wasn't a kickboxer, so it's like for me to go into a boxing or kickboxing ring was almost unrealistic. But when I was in Japan, because I knew a lot of the ground, I noticed there was this art called pancreas. There was an art called shuto. So a bunch of them that I felt that I could actually use my ground technique in it. So I could actually, feel secure that I would be able to defend myself or even win in this aspect of martial arts. And so I remember my big thing in sports was controlling my anxiety. And I noticed that whenever I played racquetball, I could never be practice Enson in the tournament court because of the nerves and the jitters and not being able to control my emotions. So I always thought, like, if only I could hit the shots like I do in practice. That's everyone's dream. Yeah, you go to the batting cage, you can hit the balls, solid line drives, and when you get into the game, you can't hit the ball, you're popping it up. So, for me, it was about on this big mission about controlling my nerves, my emotions, and I felt racquetball. I never got to the level that Egan was at, but I got to a level where I felt almost close to the practice Enson was the tournament Enson. So I kind of felt like I was able to control my nerves and emotions to a certain degree that was enough to be able to, be the person that I actually know, not be in the court and say, whose feet are these? Whose racket is this? I feel different. So that was my big thing. I remember what made me even go on this bigger mission to control my emotions is I saw a TV show that a family was driving down the street. They got into an accident. The car turned over, caught on fire. And because the father of the family was panicking so much, he wasn't able to open the door in the car because it was upside down. He was panicking, just pulling on the door, And if he were able to control his emotions, he probably could, figure out the situation so he could open the car door in a more productive way that could get his family out alive. And he didn't. He couldn't do it, and the family passed. And when I saw it, I was saying, man, that's the last thing I would want to do is have my emotions get in the way of me being able to function normally and help people in situations that I would need to be, level-headed. And I remember I was good friends with the Gracies. So when Rickson Gracie fought in Japan, I know we went to watch him. And I remember when he was fighting and he beat this guy, David Luvecki, a huge guy, like twice his size. When he beat him, I remember losing control of my emotions and jumping on the seat, screaming and, saying, yeah, it's, and I felt that, wow. Can you imagine watching someone fight create so much anxiety and emotions? Can you imagine the magnification of the anxiety would be if it was actually me in the ring? And that's what I thought. I went on this whole big mission of trying to get into the ring, whether it's a pro ring, amateur ring, it didn't matter. Man-to-man combat, having a man stand across you in the ring that's going to try to hurt you. That's so much anxiety. And I felt that in order to grow as a competitor and to grow as a man, I had to feel that. I had to feel that anxiety. Whether I was able to control it on one shot or not, I just felt that to have that experience would make me a stronger man and a stronger person. So that's when I had that whole quest on being able to finding a ring to get into that I could, use my skills that I learned in Hawaii. And I went shopping around to all different martial arts, and pancreas and rings. They had this. You had to wait till they had a test for the new boys. So I said, okay, I'll send in my resume. Waited for their call, and as I was waiting, I called Shuto. And Shuto was, fortunately for me, they were super unorganized, and they didn't have a day for a test. They were pretty much like, "Oh, come down." I was like, "Oh, cool, right on, come down, yeah." So that's how it happened, and it was funny because I decided to fight only because I wanted to test myself in the ring, and test my anxiety and controlling my emotions. And that's how it started. That's how I got in the ring. The reason why I'm fighting still today is because up until the fourth fight, I was always like, okay, I'm done. And then the teacher would say, Enson, one more, please, one more. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And it happened for four fights in a row. And when I won the fourth fight was against a K1 fighter.
Mm.
And when I beat him, I kind of sat back and said, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I am pretty good. Maybe I want to see what I can do in this sport. And that's when the vision changed. The whole vision changed from trying it out to seeing what I can do in the world of this sport. Because I felt like, wow, I think I'm pretty good, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And you took on some pretty hard fights. I mean, I was just watching one of your fights the other day with Nogueira in Pride. I mean, I was like, wow, this guy's taking on some crazy fight. Couture, Frank Shamrock. What's the reason for that? Was it just to was it because you were trying to, you know, challenge yourself and even try to negate some of that nervousness, that fear?
Yeah, well, my whole objective to get in the ring wasn't to win belts, wasn't to make money, wasn't to get sponsors.
Mm,
I mean, it was fortunate for me back in that day that those weren't available.
mm,
You couldn't make money. You couldn't get sponsors. You couldn't get famous. You couldn't, so it didn't sidetrack me from my mission of um, controlling my anxiety and my emotions and testing myself.
mm-hmm.
So, nowadays you hear all the fighters say that, oh yeah, I want to fight him. I can beat him in the second round. I can beat him in the first round. Or he's not even on my level. For me, back in my day, it was like, oh, I don't want to fight that guy. I don't think he'll give me a fight.
Mm,
It would never be, I would want to fight that guy because I can beat the guy.
mm-hmm.
It was more like, oh my God, I think this guy might destroy me. I want to feel that. I got to see what he can do, see what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I picked a fight, it was a fighter that I thought that was going to beat me, was going to break me.
Mm-hmm.
I never picked a fight that I thought I was going to win. So, that's why you notice opponents that I had. I was lucky too, because back in the day, there was no weight classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was outweighed by 60, 70 pounds sometimes of, guys with full muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was like, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was a time of my life. I could test myself. So every fight I took, it was somebody that I thought would break me.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about MMA today? Because I look back at those fights and, we had Nogueira, we had you, we had Couture, but we had some ironclad guys, and I look at MMA today with press conferences, and it feels like people have to try to stir something up in order for people to get buzzing. But when I look at those days back in Pride, it was just the stare downs, and there was respect, but there was also very intimidating. You guys were very intimidating back then as well. So, and then people cling to that, So, what was it about being back then with guys like that, having that kind of presence, versus the MMA world now with guys trying to figure out, maybe they have to try to make some kind of character or persona to get a buzz, with the crowd.
Well, you got to figure it out. Nowadays, the whole thing is different. The whole sport is different.
Mm.
So it's not about testing yourself. It's not about the martial art. The martial art that I started in, NHB, No Holds Barred, has turned into a sport. And what I find very unfortunate is it's taking another step over and it's turning itself into entertainment.
Mm.
Sport, understand, yeah, they added a lot of rules, they added weight classes. It's about, getting sponsors, making a living,
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's gotten to like almost like the pro wrestling vibe.
Mm.
Is where there's shit talk to create attention, and it becomes not as authentic anymore, because you got guys cussing at each other, saying they hate each other, and then after the fight they're hugging and making up. It's like, oh, so that was all an act. I almost feel like they're fooling the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe it's a good thing because look how big the sport has gotten.
Mm.
I personally have a little sadness in my heart that the sport has moved away from martial arts and it's more into entertainment now.
Mm. Mm.
I have a real hypocritical feeling because I'm super happy about how big the sport has become,
Mm. Mm.
but I'm super bummed that there's so many rules and there's so much entertainment involved in it. So a real hypocritical stance, but I believe it's good and bad, and I'm happy about some of the aspects of martial arts today, and I'm disappointed in a lot of it too.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I agree because with that whole pro wrestling vibe, I mean, it's like I was saying before, it's guys that are trying to make characters and trying to promote themselves in a way where they stand
Yeah,
out with so many fighters these days. But man, I just remember guys like Vanderlei Silva where they were just intimidating and they didn't have to shit talk or anything, but they were just you just saw them and you just saw their presence and it was like, man, this is fucking crazy.
yeah,
These guys are killers, man. That, as
yeah.
my friends and I would watch guys like I mean even with Brock Lesnar. I mean Brock Lesnar, which was interesting, where he came from WWF, WWE, and he transitioned to um, MMA. But even himself, he was a very intimidating force. He wasn't someone. I mean, he did shit talk, but it wasn't like the level we see today, where people get a little personal with families and religion and stuff, which I'm not accustomed to. I don't really like that much. But you know, they still had guys that were just this intimidating and bigger than life guys, but there was respect. You could tell there was respect there, and
Yeah.
um,
That's what we're missing. Yeah, nowadays is the respect aspect of it.
I agree. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a fine line, I think, and that's why I like fighters like Adesanya, all these days Adesanya or Stipe Miocic, guys that are just there to fight, and they put it on the line. Um, you know, I don't know about John Jones. John Jones is a different character all in itself, um, but honestly, for John Jones, even back in the day, that guy was a killer as well. He was cleaning out the division, and um,
I think he still will be when he comes back. Guy's just a real special fighter, man.
mm. You think he's
But
gonna go back?
it's funny because like I respect all the Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje,
Mm-hmm.
guys that don't talk shit.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as I do respect that, it does as a fan, it does make it exciting when Connor's talking shit and Kobe Covington's flying his mouth off. It kind of does make you like, oh, I want to see that fight now.
Yeah.
So it's I can see where it's coming from, where there's a little bit of you know a middle point where people love it but not really, but we love it but not really. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like that. I disappointed that they're losing the martial arts aspect of it, but I'm super stoked and excited when I see controversy and guys screaming, like they're talking to you. I wanted to watch the Kobe basketball fight just because of that
Mm-hmm.
that rivalry they had.
Yeah, and Jorge he got messed up for 25 minutes, man.
Controlled, man. He got controlled.
Yeah.
25 minutes, man. Kobe is just too. His wrestling just was too good for him.
Mm-hmm. That guy has I don't think people give him a lot of credit for this, but that guy has unbelievable conditioning. I mean,
Yeah,
in the ring to put in that pace for 25 minutes. Honestly, if the match was 10 rounds, he probably could do 50 minutes of that, honestly, with
yeah,
that type of
probably.
control.
Yep, I
Um
agree with that. I
and
just
with
like that.
with Jorge, remembering that fight actually, I think if his conditioning was better, he probably could have finished the fight maybe the third round maybe. I don't know. There was a point I remember he had a chance, but if he was more conditioned, then he could have finished it.
Yeah, he got tired in the end.
Mhm.
But I don't know, man. just the way Kobe dominated the wrestling, man. I would second guess on if even if he had stamina, if he would have been able to keep up with Kobe because Kobe's wrestling
Mm.
was just way too good, man. He couldn't do anything on the ground with him. Whether
Mm.
tired or not, when you're controlling the ground and then you get laid on your back and Kobe's on you,
Yeah.
whether pressure or not, you're gonna be on your back.
Mm.
You can't get out of that without knowing having enough wrestling to get out of it.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I was guys like Daniel Cormier. Cormier was like that. He would smother guys with his wrestling and submit them. I still remember that one fight where it was Uzdemir Cormier and he got him in the crucifix and he finished the fight that way and I was like, wow, that was crazy because I thought Volkan Uzdemir was this killer with some really good striking and I thought he could probably put more pace with the fight, but Cormier just took the wrestling and took him down and finished it up. So
His wrestling pretty much took over. Yeah, wrestling. The people don't understand it. Wrestling is so important to MMA because it's the middle ground.
mm,
You can decide with good wrestling. You can decide whether it stays standing or if it goes to the ground. If you're comfortable standing, you take it down. If you if you feel good standing and you feel like he has a better ground game, you keep it on the feet. So wrestling, you're with good wrestling, you're able to control that point, which
mm,
is super huge.
mm-hmm. Yeah, good wrestling is a huge part, and then actually that's a good point because guys like Chandler and Gaethje, who are people know them for their striking, they actually are very good in wrestling as well, and they use it to defend themselves
Top,
from the
top
takedown.
class wrestlers, yeah.
Yeah. So, and guys like Chuck Liddell, people forget Liddell was also a wrestler as well, but he
Yeah,
uses it to
he's a good
defend the
wrestler.
takedown.
Tito Ortiz, yeah, they're all good. A lot of the top guys, Mark Coleman, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
good guys are good wrestlers. Wrestlers are a good catalyst to have for MMA, 100%.
Mm. So I want to transition a little bit to your post career because you actually are a trainer now. You're coaching somebody as well. You're coaching Tsuyoshi Sudario, and I want to talk about how you guys met, how you guys got connected. So how did that come
Yeah.
about?
I got a call from Saleh Valtisanoy,
Mm.
Konishiki,
Mm-hmm.
and he called me and said, "Hey, Enson, there's this young sumo boy that is retiring or is getting kicked out of the sumo stable, and would you mind working with him?" And Saleh has helped me out a lot in Japan. Always been there when I need him. So when he asked me that, it was a no-brainer. Yeah, of course, I'll train him. When does he fight? And he told me he fights in about a month. I'm like, whoa, he's gonna fight in a month? I'm like, oh, I don't recommend him fighting. I don't think he'll be ready in a
Mm.
month. He said, well, yeah, he wants to fight in a month. So how about can you take a look at him? So had him come over to the house. Big boy,
Mm.
big sumo guy, lost 100 pounds to fight. Real serious about it. Real athletic, so he picks stuff up really fast.
Mm.
So when I first trained him, I said, "Wow, this guy picks up really fast." But I still think a month is too early for him to fight.
Mm-hmm.
He insisted he wanted to fight in a month, so I just told him, "Well, if that's the case, we're gonna have to do this day and night."
Mm.
So what happened was he ended up. He used to live in Yokohama, which is a little further away from me, which I'm in Saitama.
Mm.
So what he did was he moved. He moved into my room. He moved in. I
Oh.
had an empty room in the house. He moved in for that month, so we could train the day and night. And um, he did really well. He won. And after the fight, he asked me if I could continue to be his coach, which I didn't expect and I didn't plan to do because coaching someone takes a lot of time and a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted me to coach him, so it was like, okay, let's do it. And that's how it pretty much came about. Is he didn't want to train anywhere else after that.
Mm. So as a trainer now, as a coach now, how's your experience from your MMA career, bringing it into your coaching career now? What's the differences that you've seen, and maybe lessons you've learned?
Well, I think a lot of the sport has changed. So of course, you have to adjust to the day and age now. Back in the day when we used to train, it was about just pushing through the pain, grinding it out. You hurt the next day. Don't rest.
Mm.
Keep pushing yourself. That kind of stuff. I'm learning that that's not usually the best way to do things.
Mm.
Yeah, the sport has made a lot of changes. And it's more sporty. So my mental aspect in the fight, I don't feel like I can actually train a fighter in that sense because it's a different day and age. So there's a lot of adjustments, and there's a lot of things that I need to learn too about the sport that has changed. But yeah, it's all in all, it's a real good experience so far, and having a good time.
Mm-hmm. How is it training someone who's maybe their mentality is a little different because, like I was saying, a little previously about how you were someone that kind of picked hard fights and someone who really challenged himself in the ring, but then Tsuyoshi might not be that same person where he feels kind of the like, oh, let's fight to the death kind of person, how was that? He's not.
Yeah, that's a good point you put up because he definitely is one that picks fights that he thinks he can win. Whenever he sees a fight and he thinks he can beat the guys, I want to fight that guy, so it's adjustment for me. The mind frame, the way you're thinking, the mindset is a little different, and it's not good or bad, but I do have to acknowledge that there is a different mindset in the whole thing, and I have to learn that that I gotta adjust to it too. So I'm learning to adjust to it. I think I'm doing pretty good.
And seeing on Instagram, I mean, you guys look like you guys are having a good time too. As a coach and fighter.
We kind of eat together. We don't engage in too much stuff together. I think there needs to be a fine line of a coach and a good friend, and he can't feel too comfortable with me as the coach. So there are things we do. We eat together, but there are other things that we do keep separated. We don't spend all the time together. So it is a controlled. It has to be a controlled relationship. You can't be his best friend and his coach father figure at the same time. So it is a little bit of a work in progress.
Oh, it's a good point because then maybe he might get too comfortable, and then in terms of sparring or training, maybe he'll slack off a little bit, or he'll have a different mentality. Yeah, his edge might not be there.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Huh. So for briefly before I want to wrap things up, I kind of want to talk about how you got into Destiny Forever and the beginning of it and how that all came about, because these are some awesome bracelets. I wear these going out and it's very nice. It's very sturdy.
Got mine on too.
Yeah,
well, in Japan, these bracelets are actually thought of as protection. So whenever if you're wearing a bracelet and then it breaks, it's taking something that was supposed to come to you. Some bad fortune that's supposed to come to you. It's taking it for you and broke.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not that superstitious, but it was kind of like, oh, that's cool. Whether it's true or not, that's cool. I love the bracelet. The bracelet itself is just cool to have on. And if it has that other meaning, why not? So I had a guy give me as a gift one of them, and when it first time it broke, it was in a car accident. I totaled my Mercedes Benz, and my bracelet, I didn't even know my bracelet broke. I got a fat lip from the airbag. I got an airbag from the door and an airbag from the steering wheel.
Oh.
Shoot out into my face, and then the car was totaled. We couldn't find the left front wheel. It flew somewhere into a wall. I was on the highway and my tires started hydrofoiling.
Wow.
And it finally grabbed it, shot me right into a wall. And I walked away from it. The next day after they towed my car, I noticed that I'm missing my bracelet. So I called the towing company. They found the bracelet underneath the gas pedal, but it broke. So when that happened, I was like, holy shit! I didn't even get hurt. I got a fat lip, but my bracelet broke. So like, oh my god! So ever since then, I always wanted to have one on, and as I felt it was protecting me, I wanted whenever I had on my 39th birthday party, I decided that instead of getting presents from my guests, I'm going to give them presents. So, of course, the people that I invited to my birthday party was people that I really considered important people in my life. So I decided to buy them bracelets on every birthday party. And what happened is one party that I had, I couldn't get in touch with the guy because he was run from the police. So he actually offered to teach me how to make them. So we met up. He taught me how to make them, and it took me like 3 hours to make one. So I was like, okay, I guess no one's getting bracelets this year, but it became a hobby. I enjoyed making it. I'm not one that likes to do little things with my hands, but for some reason, making these bracelets, I really got attached to it. And I kept just making it. I just kept making for myself to a point where I posted on Facebook. Some people on Facebook said they wanted to get some, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can sell this. This is like a hobby. And then as they started asking for different colors of bracelets, I started looking at the stones. And one of the shop owners finally told me, hey, you know that we don't refer to these stones by color. They all have its own name. And he said, there's powers to the stone. I'm like, what? And that's how I learned that there's power stones in it. And I just started making it to a point where I felt confident on, putting a price on it. And once I put a price on it, started selling, and I had to make a homepage, and finally tried to open up in Hawaii, and got a big webpage at destinyforever.com. So it just took off. It was good because none of these things I didn't plan to do it. I didn't plan to make a career as a fighter. It just happened. I didn't plan to have a jewelry business, but it happened. I didn't plan to live in Japan, but it happened, so my whole life my whole story is like that. I'm a lucky guy, man. My life is guided into the right areas, the right direction. And I don't really have to I want to be a pro fighter. I want to make my life I didn't even think that once. It just happened, so I'm lucky in that sense.
Yeah. A lot of things happen organically. And, I mean, for people that want to look this up, it's at destinyforever.com, right? Is it Destiny Forever LLC, or is it just destinyforever.com?
Destinyforever.com.
And they're very well made. I mean, these are very sturdy for people that want to know how it feels. I'm telling you right now, it's sturdy. It's comfortable if you have a good size. I mean, this is the perfect size for me. So
it's super strong too. Yeah, I have customers that just surf with it. Like I go in the water with mine every day in the ocean. So it's almost something that you really don't need to ever take off. You can actually shower with it. You can swim with it. You can, sleep with it. I leave mine on all the time.
Well, one thing I'm very thankful that you went away with that car accident. I mean, that's brutal, man. That car accident unscathed. I mean, with just a fat lip. Something like that. That sounds devastating. So
yeah, I mean, you know how strong a Mercedes Benz is.
Yeah, I mean,
I totaled it. I totaled the whole car.
That's insane. Oh my gosh.
It's kind of crazy.
Holy shit, man. That's crazy. Enson, just kind of wrapping things up a bit. I want to ask you for fighters, like what's your advice? I would say, what's your top 3 advice for fighters these days? Because maybe guys might be looking at it in a different sense. Maybe they're getting into the sport, or maybe they're veterans. But would you say something that you've learned in your life, and what would be the top 3 advice you would want to give them?
For a fighter is get a lot of mat time. One, a lot of time on the mat is super important. The second thing is it's good to when you shop for a gym, find a gym that's more family orientated than anything else. Because when you have the family atmosphere, you avoid a lot of drama in the gym with jealousy and fighters being competitive with you. My gym is run like a family. I just came back from Extreme Couture in Vegas. We were lucky enough to have them accept us with open arms, and that gym is like a family. They take care of each other. They mourn when somebody passes. It's like a real nice family atmosphere in the gym. So I think the second advice is to really find a gym that is like a family atmosphere more than a training gym, And then the third advice that I can give you advice for as something that I've experienced is whenever you guys get injured, I know, when you're young and you get injured, the doctor tells you to rest a month. And, for me, I was like, okay, if an old lady walked in with the same problem, he'd tell us the same thing, So for a month for her ain't a month for me. So I'm going to go back in the gym in 2 weeks, So and you probably could do that being younger. When you're younger, you have a lot faster recovery. But I believe now that a lot of my problems that I have with my shoulders not being able to move, my neck being super tight, I can't really look back and forth, my knees pop when I bend to a certain level, is because I didn't take care of my body when I should have. So my third recommendation to fighters that's coming up is to heal properly. The doctor says 1 month, rest a month. If you have a cast on, don't cut it. I cut off 3 different casts because I wanted to work out already.
Holy shit.
I sawed it off. Yeah, it's super hard to
That's crazy.
saw off those. Yeah, I did. So, don't saw off any casts. Doctor says rest. Another week or another 2 weeks is going to be more helpful to your body and let it heal properly. Yeah, so that would be my 3 stages of advice.
And then a last question: what would you say for advice for for people in like our listeners today, even just in life in general, something you've learned throughout your life? What is something that you would want to give, just advice in general?
Advice in general for everyone is, no matter what you're experiencing in your life, always remember there's someone there in life that's experienced something that's worse than you, and someone that's experiencing something better. So no matter what situation you're in, remember it could be worse and it could be better. So no matter what your situation is in, and if you're feeling down about your situation, just remember that there's always someone out there that got it worse than you. So as far as being depressed about your situation, you're not. It could be worse. Just remember, it could be worse. I feel it really helped me a lot, is knowing that, hey, wait a minute, this is a shitty situation, but it could be worse, and be grateful that it's not. So that helped me a lot, and that, I think, whether people understand it or not right away, I think it's good to input it into someone's head that possibly they can start having that type of frame of mind when problems happen.
That's a great advice, actually. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, just I want to say, hey, Uncle Enson, thank you for coming on the show. I can't thank you enough for this opportunity to talk to you.
Grab your drink, Kampai Sugai. You forgot to Kampai.
Well, we're about to Kampai, actually.
Are we? Oh, I thought we forgot about.
No, we didn't Kampai yet. Yeah. I have tea, actually, but but now it's cold, so I have cold tea now. But
I have warm water.
But if you guys are watching at home, if you guys want to Kampai with us, yeah, let's Kampai. But so for Uncle Enson, this is for you. This is to your future. As right now, it's bright because you're super active. You're doing a lot of things, and with your business, this is to your business. This is to you as a coach, to even Tsuyoshi, to him as a fighter, for his growth, and to everything you're doing, Enson. Just thank you again. Kampai.
Thank you, bro. Kampai.
Kampai.